real. Oh, what you know about me? Oh, what you know about me? Oh, what you know about me?
Hey, y'all, what it is, y'all know you. Welcome back to your favorite podcast. It is Pod Day. And, you know, I'm sitting there out of breath. I ran from the train. I'm out of breath. I had to catch my, I should have waited. Long day, y'all, but y'all know what it is, man. Welcome back to your favorite show, More Than a Title. I'm your host, as usual, Jarrett, Chief Revenue Officer, Outside the Box Digital. And, of course, I got my brother, my brethren, your favorite CEO, Chadeo, up there. Yeah. Got him.
One day we gonna figure this shit out. You already know what it is, ladies and gentlemen, man. We here in the building, man. It's Pod Day, Tuesday, one of our favorite days of the week. And you know, I'm gonna say it ahead of time. We got another phenomenal guest that's about to come, drop some gems. So as usual,
get your tape decks ready. Let's record. Get your VCRs.
Yo, the VCR every time.
Get your recorded devices ready, because you know we're gonna have a lot of fun as we normally do. But of course, you know, it's all this testosterone in the building. So I got my sis over here. See, right? I got her. I got the balance with us. Nadege, she's here to calm us down, because you know we out of control. Nadege, what's up?
Yeah. You know what it is. Again, like, it's Pod Day. It's a good day. It's the day after Memorial Day. I hope y'all got your rest, got your barbecue in and all that. Yeah, you know, it's a phenomenal episode, and I'm ready to start the show. So, Chadeo, what are we gonna do?
Well, you know how we like to start every show, grateful and thankful, G&T. You know, once again, this is just, you know, it was Memorial Day, right? So, you know, the G&T goes out to everybody that understands what Memorial Day is all about, right? We are saluting everybody that chose to, in any type of capacity, right, give their time and their life maybe to the armed forces, to the services of protecting this great country, right? And our way of life, our democracy, our freedom, etc. So we are grateful for everybody that chose to take up that call in arms. And we are thankful for the people that supported them while they made that decision, right? Because you can't make that decision on your own. There's always a support system that goes behind that. So G&T to all my service members, brothers and sisters in any capacity, or anybody that decided to enlist. And, you know, we are grateful for the people that came before us, and we're paving the way for the people that come after us. G&T.
There you go. And you know, shout out to our team too. Shout out to our distribution partners, the Live Podcast Network, first woman-owned, Black-owned podcast network. So if you want more content, like More Than a Title, make sure you take out your phone, scan the QR code, download the app, and half of your subscription goes to the content creator of your choice. Not a lot of brands doing it, and we don't talk it, we walk it, we supporting our own. Shout out to Angel and the entire Live team. What a time to be alive, you dig?
What a time to be alive. I like it. I like it.
We're in a groove right now. With that said, I gotta get my...
Let's start the show.
It's been at least 10 years since I spoke to my brother, man. So just before I give him the warm intro, man, this is a dude that I started off in my sales journey with, man. We was in the mud together. We was in the boiler rooms together. We was making it. We was, trying to figure it out. We made our way, man. We was very successful there. And to see what he's gone through, see what he's persevered through, and everything he's accomplished, man, I'm just proud of his brother. So for those who don't know him and those who don't know the show, it's More Than a Title, where we go through real stories beyond the titles. We explore the journey, the challenges, victories, everything that shapes who we are and what we do. So this brother right here is a digital media veteran, over 14 years in the game, from nimble startups to industry giants, and now leading programmatic teams for major pharma clients at IPG Mediabrands. But beyond the title, Raman is a father, a husband, and as of this year, officially 5 years cancer-free. His journey through stage 4 cancer, the birth of his child, the loss of his mother, and the pursuit of balance through it all is a testament of resilience, perspective, and purpose. He calls himself an open book, and today we're going to get into it and talk about some of these chapters, man. So I just want to make sure you've seen him. You've seen him in the boiler room with me. But those who remember, y'all remember seeing him in the room. You see him in the agencies. You see him.
That's where we were.
Boom.
And he's still here rocking with us. Give it up for our brother, Mr. Raman Khanna, VP of Media at KINESSO, y'all.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh my God.
Thank you so much.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
And the show it will be.
With that
Super
said,
excited. I really appreciate you guys welcoming me on.
Yeah.
I wish I had cool ass intros like you guys. I do not. But honestly, Jared, that was perfect, man. The way that you broke it down.
I would say your intro is perfect.
Yeah.
What's up with that? Yeah, it's impressive, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? What you have to persevere through. And I'm gonna tell you right now, you're probably one of the only stories that we've had one cancer survivor, other shout out to Rebecca, but to hear your story, man, go through it. But before we get into the real journey, man, it's always about the upbringing, man. Tell us where you got to. Me and you met, right? So tell us about the early influences.
I don't even know where to start, man. I mean, we have so many different influences in our lives, right? Whether it's personal, professional, whatever. But I mean, if we're talking straight personal journey, right? To me, it's intertwined with professional. Coming out of college, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I had a marketing degree. I didn't really do much coming out. I was waiting tables for a year or so. I think a lot of people probably end up doing that, right? Where they're just trying to figure out a pathway. They've gotten a degree, and I don't think that's a very uncommon thing. I think that's probably pretty relatable if you really kind of break it down.
Yeah.
I bounced around a little bit. I did odd jobs for a few years, kind of made my way. Through it all, I got to meet tons of different people, and I was always cool and genuine with them. Ended up through one of my connections at that boiler room, that startup in media 14 years ago. And that's where Jarrett and I met a couple years into it. And you know what it was, man? It was cold calling. It was ad copy. It was doing accounts receivable, accounts payable. You're doing everything to run a company.
Yeah.
But that's how you also grew.
That's a fact.
That's how you also grew.
Before we get into you and Jarrett's theatrics, because that's what we're gonna call it, theatrics. Let's rewind it a little back. Yeah. Like, where were you born at? Where were you raised at? Like, it's important because that helps to lay the foundation for the mindset of why did you go to college? What did you study? So let's take it back to like early days of Raman.
Yeah, sure, man. So my background is Indian. I was born in India. My family moved here late 80s. I was maybe 7 years old when I moved here. Bounced around from New York and California, moved around a whole bunch, and we finally settled in New York in Long Island when I was maybe 10 or 11. And that's kind of where I grew up for the most part. Grew up, immigrant family, didn't have a ton of money, struggling. It was the four of us, me, my brother, my parents. We're all working and we're all contributing to the household fund, right? Which means that, as a 16, 17-year-old, working, I'm taking my money and I'm putting it to whatever the fund was to pay the mortgage on the house or to make sure that we had groceries in the house, right?
That's right.
So, from an early age, I was from a very early age, I understood hard work and I understood what it takes. And knowing that I was from an immigrant family, I'm kind of growing up in a neighborhood that's not as diverse, that is, kind of looks down on black and brown people. I knew I didn't have much room to say anything. You keep your mouth shut, you do your job, you keep stacking, you keep building, you get to where you get to, and then you can speak up a little bit, right? Maybe that's not the right mentality, but that's what I had, but that's what I operated with, and that's how I got through. So,
wait, before you go any further, like that's a very, we talk about the balance, a child's place, and when is it time for them to understand that you were raised and and everything's been given to you, but now it's time for you to contribute. So as as me coming up, I'll speak personally, right? It was a lot younger than you. I was like 7, 8 out there, but a lot of the times that I made money, it was to support my household. I didn't make money to buy sneakers and clothing. If I didn't bring in a certain amount of money, we didn't eat, right? So I understood what it was very early on to give back and to help support the household. How did that make you feel? Like, just walk us through that mindset of just understanding, right? Because a lot of children nowadays, that type of mindset is completely out the window, right?
These Jordans, I want this new drip.
Right,
This,
right, exactly. Very selfish, not selfless, right? When you're doing something, you're helping the family and you're contributing, that's a selfless mentality. So just walk us through how that felt to understand that what you were doing was not only helping you, but helping your family at that type of a young age. Because that's a lot of pressure for somebody at that type of age when you're still trying to figure things out.
For sure. I want to be honest here, and I think there was a little bit of internal conflict throughout it all, right?
Okay.
And I think part of that means that, I was willing to do whatever it took to help my family, and I still am. That's never changed, right? But you're right? When you're at that young of an age and there's a lot of pressure on you, you almost at times harbor feelings of resentment, right? And you're not sure if that resentment is to your family. You're not sure if that resentment is to your neighborhood, to yourself even. So you have this this energy that doesn't go anywhere. And you have to kind of figure out how to manage it, right? So if you're not actively having that debate in your mind that why am I doing all of these things? I see my friends with new J's. I see them going out getting new clothes, right? I don't have a car. They got new cars. I'm getting by with a bike and getting rides from people. Like this is not it.
Yeah.
But you understand why you're doing it.
Yeah.
That's the grind. Yeah. That's the grind, right? So I think for me it was that debate. Why am I doing this? My family is important. I understand what we're trying to build. But damn, man, my friend just got some tickets to the game.
Yeah.
Sneakers. It's a nice outfit. Like, what the hell do I do?
Yeah.
Stuff.
Yeah, the resentment part, I'm glad you brought that up because I think people are afraid to talk about that part, that resentment part, right? Yeah. We always talk about looking through life from a child. When you look at your parents from a child to an adult, and then your parents, and then you understand it as you become a parent yourself and an adult later on. But early on, it's very hard to understand why you can't do the same things that everybody else is doing, right? But I think it falls into like the teachings of what you were taught at home on what building and success looks like, right? Yeah. Because we found that a lot of the children that get into working and studying and stuff early, right, and not play around so much, end up being the ones that are actually more successful than the ones that do actually play around and kind of waste their time and kind of spin their wheels so much. So it's one of those like things like a seesaw, right? So it's always interesting to hear different type of point of views on it because I didn't feel resentment. For me personally, I didn't feel resentment. I just felt like a sense of duty, right? I just felt like I have to do this because this is what we have to do to make it through. You understand what I'm saying? Jarrett, and I know you were getting money early too. How did you feel like, you know what I mean? When you was getting, I know your situation is a little different, but you were still getting money and, you still have responsibilities. How did you feel like, when you first started, getting money and, if something was asked of you?
The opposite. So I wasn't asked to put money, but I was the one at 14 years old that had the job. I was coming straight from Scanlon, working at Hallmark, checking back. Right. Then I had the 3 for 10s. I had those going. I had the 3 for 10s. New J's. Let's just say I had the new J's. You know what I'm saying? Mama, like, how you got the new J's? You know what I mean? I wasn't getting all of them with the Hallmark check. You know what I mean? Like that. That was the real. You know what I'm saying? So I'm grateful for that. But you know what I'm saying? It made me look at the movements, right? Like Pops especially, right? Working from 7 o'clock in the morning to 12 o'clock at night. Like everything I do can't be for no reason. Everything he's doing can't be for no reason. So what am I going to do to try to elevate the family? That was my thoughts always early. How about you, sis?
I'll say for me, like, yeah, very similar to Jared. Like I stayed in Claire's and Forever 21. Like like the newest cute outfit from the from the latest collection. But like I'll say, like, I was very fortunate enough to have parents who, their mindset was like, we want you to do your best. So that, right, I had a sense of duty and responsibility to my family as like the oldest and set the example. Like that was my way of contributing. And I can understand Ramon's like this, there's resentment, but it's like this anger to have to like be part of a unit and kind of like, oh, well, I have to do for the unit. Because, you know, sometimes, especially as a kid, like you want to do for you, you want to do what you want to do. So I can get that from then. And then, you know, as you get older and you mature, you have, you know, hindsight is 20/20. And you can see like, okay, what you were doing is important and it was contributing to your family. Like there's no regret.
I also don't want to make it seem like it was all resentment, right?
Yeah.
Like I didn't miss out on anything. Don't get me wrong. You know, what I had, I was thankful for. I understood my position and where we were trying to build and get to. And I wasn't in any spot where I really felt like I was missing out on things, right? Granted, there were things that I wish I could have had. Yeah. Those are material things, right? And to be quite honest with you, I'm much older now and I have kids of my own and I have, you know, a career. I can afford those things now, right? Like those things don't mean much to me, right? Yeah. They're cool to have, they're nice to have, but if I don't have them, it's not that serious. So all in perspective at the end of the day, I suppose.
Yeah. I think it helps to build character though. And it helps to build a work ethic very early, right? A work ethic very early because, you know, school and everything, even like college, right? It's a system, right? Get up, go study. It's all about time management. So when you're working in addition to that, I think it helps you to understand what my biggest thing is like, we don't teach kids what adult life really looks like until it's too late. Like that's my biggest issue, right? I feel like kids nowadays get coddled and they you know, they get in this system where it's like, oh, not yet, they're still a kid until they're not. And then you expect them to kind of learn what, because look, the average lifetime, it doesn't matter, let's say 100, right? Let's say 100. You're grown at what? Let's say legally 18, right? 18, 19, but I'll even give you 25. You have 25 years of your life to prepare you for the next 75 years of your life. Like that's how I look at it, right? You have 25 years to prepare you for what, once you're grown, there's no Benjamin, but like there's no turning it back. So my thing is like, too many people wait until the end of high school, the end of college to really start, you know, really teaching their children what adulthood looks like. And then when it's done, you kind of get thrust into adulthood and you don't have the experiences to build on. And I think that's like a big issue. I think that more parents need to start giving more responsibilities and start kind of tightening up early, because children need to understand that once you become an adult, it's not fun and games anymore. You know what I mean? What's your thoughts on that, Cuzzo?
Nah, I agree with you, but I also think it just is weaving it in a way where it's subtle, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? As they're growing up, right? Like you want to be the best basketball, like for instance, with your man, he want to be on a football team. You want to be the star running back? Man, you got to practice. We got to be up early. We got to do these cone drills. We got to do this. You got to make sure you know how to grab the ball. You got to know the playbook. You got to know all that. I'm not going to do that for you. If you want it, go ahead. I'll be with you every single morning, but I'm not going to do it for you. You want to be you want to get a scholarship? Guess what? I'm not going to check your homework. You got to go in and do it. You know what you got to do, right? So that's the message I try to weave in with my kids, bro. But like you said, subtle joints. By the time you don't want this motherfucker's out there right now that's 30, 40 years old that ain't grown. It's all
that's what I'm saying though, right? You know what I mean, Raman? Like I feel like, you know, we talk about skill sets all the time, right? The educational system teaching you like skill sets to help you become and maintain success on whatever level that, you know, you feel like that is to be a productive person in society. And I just feel like, you know, like I said, if you don't never get taught that at an early age, by the time you learn it, you're still so dependent on your parents that I think you're behind the curve, you know?
Yeah.
That type of situation. That's all. I think you know, it's an interesting conversation to have, you know? That's why we love our guests to come on, because everybody has a different point of view. Everybody comes from like a different background. So it's definitely an interesting conversation to have and just hear different perspectives on it. Because I think the conversation, it must be had, right?
That's a fact though.
Yeah. So I want to jump into like, because you mentioned you have kids, and let's talk about how like, right, these experiences you had as a child and like experiencing as a family, like what have you brought into, you know, your experience as a father? What do you want to instill in your kids? You know, what are some, you know, things that you didn't have when you were a child that, you know, you really try to push for your children to have now?
You know, my kids have a lot more than what I had growing up. And I think that's a good thing, right? And I know I'm raising kids that are a little spoiled to some extent, but I don't see anything wrong with that. You should be spoiling your kids. They're your kids. They're They're the ones that carry who you are, good and bad, into the next generation, right? And they're going to impart a piece of you onto their children moving forward after that. So they carry on who you are forever, essentially. So I don't mind spoiling them because I want them to remember me as, I always had their back. One of the things that I always tell my kids is, go be bored, get off the iPad. Don't be on the phone, go be bored, find some creativity. That's when your mind is most creative, is when you're bored. Like, just go, like just figure something out. My daughter is crazy artistic. She has beautiful paintings at 8 years old. She's very talented. She's very athletic. Like, I'm excited to just develop that talent in her, right? Work with her. And just like you said, Jarrett, right? Like, you wanna be on the football team, put in the work, learn the playbook, put the hours in, right?
Yeah.
Those are the same things that I wanna instill in my kids, right? My son, 4 years old, big boy, ready for football, ready for sports. You know what I mean? Like, I want to make sure that I'm working with him to understand hard work, put in that work with him. But at the end of the day, that confidence has got to come from him. And he's the one that's going to take it a step further than what I can ever provide. But like, that's right. All of it kind of at the end of the day boils down to them just being bored. Find something else to do. You don't need constant gratification, dopamine hits from your phone and iPad. Get up, go do something. And if that's being artistic, if that's doing gymnastics, if that's playing football, if that's going outside and just being outside and enjoying the air, I don't care. Go do it.
That's right.
I got another question.
Go ahead, sis.
What's one thing you see in your kids that that's in yourself? Like, what's a reflection of them that you see in them that like really like makes you feel good?
I think they're very family focused, and even at a young age, I think they understand family, and really beyond just family, just relationships in general, right? And I think they go out of their way to make sure that they are inviting and comfortable with everybody, and people are comfortable with them. Granted, they're kids and they're going to be off the wall and loud and take up space, but they're good kids at the end of the day, and I appreciate that.
That's right. What's some of I gotta ask you? We asked this a lot. What's some of the best game that your mom and pops gave you growing up, bro? Because I'm gonna ask you how we got to marketing. Because usually from your culture, bro, not a lot of people go into marketing, doctors, lawyers, stuff like that. You know what I mean? So what made you go that route? And what's the game they gave you?
That's a stigmatism.
It is, bro. But that's what it is. How many times we've heard this on the show? Like, no, you have to be this, you have to be that.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know if my parents. I love that. I don't know if my parents ever pushed me to be any specific profession or anything like that. I don't think that was ever the case, right? I came from a really blue collar family where my dad was a bartender and worked in restaurants for basically my whole life. And my mom, she worked in supermarkets, right? Like we come from working class people, right? I think for us, it was always just like, get your education, don't work in the same type of jobs that we did. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but we're putting in the work so you don't have to do these same type of jobs. Do something else where you're using your mind and not beating your body up for a paycheck, right? Message. And I think, I think that probably instilled in me more than anything. I just probably ended up gravitating to marketing and advertising just as a natural thing. But even then, I didn't know in what space within that field I would enter and end up working in. And I probably bounced around a little bit in, 3 or 4 different areas of marketing before I kind of settled into programmatic, which is, where I've been the last 7 years or so, right? So for me, finding the profession, I just kind of naturally followed my curiosity and where it was, and it kind of led me to, going to school for marketing. And even then, even after I graduated, I still didn't find my space within marketing. I needed to leverage relationships to be able to get in there. But when I did, I felt the most comfortable I've ever felt in a position. And all I was really doing was just speaking my mind on things and getting to know people. And I think so much of what we do is just, person to person in relationships. So for me, it was a natural progression.
Now, programmatic makes sense, bro, for what we were doing.
Yeah.
Don't Programmatic, Ramon, because Jarrett's gonna go crazy. It's certain keywords you can't say on this show because Jarrett gets excited and
No, usually it's content and social. Programmatic is not one of them.
yeah.
Programmatic is not one of them. Bro. We talk
Eli,
about budgets and
programmatic,
stuff
let's
like
get
that.
to it.
Budget, I get excited. Budget, woo!
But that's the thing, right? Is that like everybody knows social, right? Everybody knows
Yeah.
search and content. Everybody wants to be a creator, and I get that too. Don't get me wrong, but you know, the profession itself is going towards automated buying, and that's programmatic. So, you know, where is their longevity and where is their evolution and where do you kind of find your space? And, you know, I'm thankful to be in a space where I've gotten some expertise over the past 6 or 7 years and kind of grown teams and established a level of professionalism, of respect. And I think, you know, that's not the work in 6 or 7 years. That's, you know, the 30 plus years before that required that work.
That's right. Shit.
So walk us through. So, okay, you come out of college now, you got the degree.
Yeah.
Marketing, degrees in marketing, right?
Yep.
Okay. So now you're like, okay, I want to be a marketer, but what are you really thinking so you studied marketing, but what did you have a specific like idea in your head of what you wanted to do? Did you know it then? No,
not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
Honestly, man, I was waiting tables at the time. I was partying. I was just getting into things I shouldn't be getting into. I was just having fun, like any early 20s kid out of college would do, right? Just having fun, living life. And I wasn't necessarily thinking about long-term stuff, long-term goals, where I wanted to be. I knew I had the degree. It was probably transferable, and whatever I got into, at some point I would end up being successful with. I kind of had this, you know, even if that confidence wasn't always out front, I knew it was there. So I kind of had this confidence that no matter what I would get into, at some point I would end up being successful. And maybe I leaned on that too much because I probably took too long to kind of get to a point where I felt I was in a good space. So I got out of college, you know, I ended up just working at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, not the best job. I'm still, you know, doing the grind daily, you know, washing cars, you know, in a suit, I'm washing cars, which, you know, wasn't
nuts.
Yeah, that's not,
Dad, you washing cars in a suit?
What's wrong with this guy? Am I kidding me?
But listen, man, I did the job. That's what the check required. I did the job, you know, and I spent 3 or 4 years there. I ended up getting promoted a bunch and moved into like a corporate role, which was kind of cool for where I was in my career. But even then, I didn't like where I was. It just wasn't the space I wanted to be in. I didn't see it long term. I did it just as a paycheck and, you know, kind of facilitated what I was trying to do at the time. And then from there, I ended up becoming a recruiter for like 1.5 years. And I'll be honest with you, that wasn't the right fit. I did not like that job. I did not have my heart into it. But again, it was a paycheck. I did what I was trying to do. Yeah. In both of those roles, neither of those 2 jobs were a right fit, but I met people in both of those jobs that would end up impacting my life like 15, 20 years down the line. And I met, as a recruiter, I met somebody that would be very influential in getting me into that role at that startup media company that Jarrett and I worked at together. So had I not done these jobs, right, these are situations, these are steps that I'm missing out on, right? Yeah. So wholeheartedly, I did what I was asked and required to do of my job. I met with these people. I had really good relationships and very genuine interactions with them, to the point where they would actually recommend me to, you know, other folks for different roles, right? Yeah. Ended up working from that recruiter job, leaving there, and ended up working at that boiler room marketing company. And, you know, that's really where it was like, all right, I've gotten my foot in the door and I did what I had to get here. It wasn't easy, but I'm here. And it's still not easy because I know this is a grind. We would walk in there 37th and 8th every day, right? And I hate to say it, man, you know, there was you know, a needle drop right by us. You know, there's rats and roaches everywhere you go. We're getting in there at 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning, working sometimes till 8, 9 o'clock at night, and then hitting the bar together.
Yeah.
It's a grind. It's a grind. You did the work. You got to know people. You started really like leveraging relationships, and that's how you grow. So I don't know, man. It's, you know, we're talking about like 10, 15 years worth of growth and getting to know people and grinding that people just don't see. They just don't see that.
One thing I will say about that company, bro, it prepared me for everything in the industry, bro. So like, to give you context, y'all, like if we didn't hit our number by Friday, you were gone Monday. You would come in on Monday and they would just hand you your pink, like you're out of here. You can't come in, you can't work here. You have to get your deals, you have to get your numbers. It was nothing but cold call. There's no LinkedIn at the time. There's no social media. It's straight, get that number. You don't even know if it's real or not. If not, you got to search and find it on Google, get that number, put it in Salesforce, and you got to grind. So the only thing that saved me in that job was, one, I wasn't trying to go back to BBQs or go back to the block. But also before then, I was at a mortgage spot. So I had to make 300 calls anyway. So if anybody who's listening, young professionals, right? If you're in a cold call job, most people don't want to make cold calls. But if you embrace that shit, if you just embrace it and get over the, I'm going to get rejected, people are going to curse me out, all that other shit, whatever, and you just get to it, you will be successful. I think I just out-hustled people. And that's how I got it. And that's how me and Raman started working. Like I was on some regular, just trying to keep my job for a month or two. Then once I finally got the hang of this thing, so I would close a deal and he would manage the client. Got you.
Mm-hmm. But I just want to say this. I'm glad you guys did what you did in the time that you did it. I think it would be 100 times more difficult for you to do that now because of just the way people deal with their phones. So many robocallers, so many spam calls. Like I'm gonna be honest with you, like if I don't know a number and it doesn't say something that I think I'm affiliated, I'm not even answering. I'm being honest with you. So imagine now, right? With all of these like spam blockers and all that that's in there. If your company obviously is not registered in somebody's phone and you're making a cold call, they might not even answer that fucking call. So imagine trying to do that job that you guys did then with what's right.
What happened? You come up as it doesn't matter what company, you can most likely come up as a spam likely. If you got a
that exactly.
It's coming up as spam likely. So that's the problem right there, right? And that's why relationships are so important. This is why we preach what we preach.
So how does it change now then, Raman? How does that change now? Because there's still obviously an industry that relies on cold calling, right? But now with all the challenges, right, technology and all the things that are going on now, what are some of the like more bigger challenges now that people that are getting to the industry that have to go through that boiler room type of a setting? What are they facing? Like, how are they making their numbers when it's 10 times more difficult to even get somebody on the phone now?
Yeah. I mean, I'm thankful to not be in a sales role, right?
Right.
And you know, I'm in a position where, you know, I have a team. I have a couple of different teams actually where, you know, we're working on, you know, client business, and we have, you know, sales folks that have already kind of secured that relationship. And now we're responsible for delivering the media, you know, and we're making strategy recommendations. You know, I guess part of my job is sales because I am selling through a specific like tactical recommendation or a strategy to clients in terms of how they're going to, you know, advertise and reach audiences. Right. So, you know, I guess maybe if I can revise my answer a little bit, I would probably say that there's an evolution, right? There's an evolution of like, all right, I'm not just selling via cold calling, but now I'm selling this deck that I put together and this idea that I have to further this business. So it may not necessarily be me picking up and dialing a bunch of numbers, but now it's, hey, you know me, this is the reputation of not just me, but my company. The reputation of my ideas because you've seen the success that I've put through, right?
Yeah.
But now I'm telling you that, all right, it's not just like the things that I've done. This expertise has led me to a point where I can say I'm going to recommend this to you, and I'm confident in what the outcome of this will be. So I guess, you know, more than anything, it's probably just that, you know, have that like faith and confidence in yourself, and that evolution of like, you know, you're right. The business is no longer cold calling, but the business has kind of graduated from that to now, all right, you're in front of me face to face and we're exchanging ideas. And how do I sell through what I'm thinking to help further this business.
That's it. And the best way you do that is by knowing someone's business.
Yeah.
Knowing someone's business. Top thing in sales, right? You get that call, right? The reason why I'm able to even get a cold call now, right? Or do good on calls now, I'm still in sales function. But guess what? I'm calling you. I know everything about your business. I know exactly what you did. I know what you purchased. I know what tech stack you have. I understand what technology you have, and I know your blind spots. I'm knowing everything, right, in order to get to that sale. So it's like you said, that's even a harder job, right? When you get the actual, you got to execute. You got to come up with an idea, and if you don't execute on that, who's gonna come back to you? That sales team, the people who's gonna be like, "Yeah, I just did all of this shit to get the deal, and you couldn't even execute." So it's equally as hard, bro.
Yeah. So I want to talk about, you've had a lot of different experiences, and Jarrett, you can chime in on this. When do you decide to pivot? Like for young people, what, like, you constantly, the power of the pivot is important, but when is it, like, when do you know it's time to pivot?
I think early in my career, the decision was made for me, right? I got laid off a couple of times. It sucks. It happens. It's unfortunate, but through all of that, you pivot and you kind of, you figure things out, right? So a couple of times that decision was made for me. In the times that I've been lucky enough to say, all right, this is time for me to kind of try something else. It was more of me feeling like I had reached my full capacity in the role that I was in. And, not to say that there was something wrong with the company that I was working with, but they didn't have growth potential for me anymore either, right? And that's okay. Like, you have to understand how that works. And when you hit that point, I think it's easy to pivot, right? You kind of find a different opportunity that provides you a little bit of growth. I went from the startup where Jarrett and I worked to Yahoo, because after 4 years of working there, I just I kind of saw the writing on the wall for me, and it was like, all right, well, I've spent some time here and I've grown a little bit and I've learned a lot, but my career here is going to be what it is. And I had an opportunity at Yahoo because, again, I've met somebody that I was really cool with that worked on an in-platform optimization team, and he was able to get me an interview, and I kind of took that for what it was. And when it was an opportunity to pivot, I just looked at overall opportunity for my growth and for my career and where I wanted to be. And I think that made the decision a lot easier, right? So I would say, like, for young professionals, for anybody that's trying to figure out when to pivot, like that's not an easy decision. Nobody's going to make that decision but you.
Yeah.
But because of that, like, be honest with yourself, right? Have you reached your full potential where you are? Is your job going to allow for you to grow further? Maybe they're not. And if they're not, that's okay. But you got to be smart and confident enough to be ready to pivot if that need arises.
I even think before that, you have to know what you want in your career before you can pivot, to know that when to pivot, right? If you're just working, like some jobs you just said too, bro, it was like, yeah, it was just a paycheck. It was just a paycheck. If it's just a paycheck, like, you're going to pivot eventually. But if it's something that you're going to stay in there for, you have to set a goal. What is that goal going to be? Am I going to climb the corporate ladder? If so, what is the playbook go like that? Am I speaking with my managers? Do I look at my KPIs? Am I looking at, the region or the quarterly reviews? How am I getting through all of that shit? And they don't give you other opportunities or see your skill set other than what you are in that role, more than likely it's going to be a ceiling, straight up.
For sure.
I mean, I think there's a ceiling everywhere.
Facts.
I think there's a ceiling everywhere. And I think it's also the climate in which the company is providing for you, like Cuzzo said, right? If you're in a company, Raman, and like Cuzzo said, and you're doing above and beyond the work, right? You're doing well, and they come right to you and say, hey, we know that you're doing this. We like that, give you other opportunities. Then maybe it'll change your mind and say, oh, okay, maybe I could stay a little longer. They appreciate me, right? They appreciate me here, right? But if you're just doing your job and you just feel like another cog in the wheel, right? And you're like, yeah, it doesn't matter what I do. You know what I mean? This thing's just going to move the way it is. Then, I guess eventually you're going to be like, I need to get out of here, right? We talk about being like fulfilled and, self-fulfillment, right? Like, are you doing what you really want to do? Like, is this filling you up? Like, is this your purpose, right? Yeah. Are you being the best version of Raman that you want to be? You know what I mean? In this type of a situation, I know for me, a lot of the times it was just seeing the hierarchy not move. That's the best way to put it. I'm like, once I started to understand the structure of these companies that I used to work for, I would, go to them and be like, okay, well, we're here and this is here. And well, how do you get here? And how do you get here? And are you going to help us get there? Or what does that look like? And then when I do get there, are you going to give up this spot? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what is this thing looking like? And once I realized like the same people are in the same chairs for 10, 15, 20 years, and the only thing they do is just switch chairs. I'm like, oh no, there's no way I'm staying here. You know what I mean? It's like, it's almost like going to the NBA. It's like one in 1,000 is gonna elevate. Other than that, this is what your life is gonna kind of look like for the foreseeable future. And I couldn't do it.
That's the red flags. You gotta pay attention to those.
Yeah, I had to pivot. So, but another important thing, Ramon, is so you're young at this time and you're doing these jobs. When did you meet your wife before you started the film? Because that's very important too, to understand the market of when to pivot, right? Because if you're partying, you having a good time, a single Ramon, shit, life is good. You got a good paycheck coming in, you ain't got no responsibilities. Let's get to it. But now, once you have a significant other and or you're starting to plan for a family, that changes your decision making also. So when did that happen around? What time in your career did that happen?
That was we met around the time that I was a recruiter, somewhere around then.
So before Yahoo, right?
Before the Yahoo,
before VSW, which was the boiler room spot. And Jarrett, I don't know if you remember her. We used to, when we'd go out for drinks and stuff, she used to come by. She was my girlfriend at the time. She used to come by and hang out with all of us. Like, I don't know if you remember her at all.
It was a lot of drunk nights at the bar.
It was a lot.
We used to go crazy, bro.
A little bit.
We used to work hard and play hard.
No, man, but listen, when we met, we were just kind of cool for a little bit before anything, right? And I didn't even think anything of it. Over time, the feelings just kind of grew. And when they got to a point where it was like, all right, this is somebody really cool that I want to spend some time with, I kind of knew early on, right? I was like, all right, this feels good and this feels right. And looking back on it, man, it's this year we're going to be celebrating 10 years married and 17 years.
There we go. There we go.
Congrats, bro.
Thank you. She's an awesome woman. She's actually, she's in the grind herself, right? Like she's a nutritionist. She wrote a cookbook. She's done recipe development. She's worked at the Food Network for their Food and Wine Festival. She's done that for a few years. So she's a really talented home chef, like trying to develop her career and done a little catering on the side too. So, if anybody knows about the grind, it's her and I. So can't argue that.
That's symmetry right there. I love that.
Shit, I got to ask you now, bro. I don't want to get into the somber note, but like, cause I'm gonna keep it all the way honest with you, bro. I didn't know you was going through what you was going through. Other people that we were working with, bro, reached out to me. It was like, yo, did you hear? I'm like, no, I didn't hear anything, bro. Like last time I seen him, he was doing good, doing his thing. Everybody's progressing. You keep tabs. You know how we do. We keep tabs on each other, stuff like that, bro. But when did you find out the news that you did have cancer, bro? Like, where in life were you?
Cancer stories is a crazy story, man. It is a crazy story. So I was living in Queens, me, my wife, our daughter, who was 3 at the time. So this is 2020 in the middle of the pandemic. Pandemic hits in March. In the summertime, we're looking for houses. We had some money saved up. So we're going house hunting every weekend. We probably saw 30 or 40 different houses before we got lucky and lost out on a few houses before, finally had an offer accepted on a place. And it felt good, right? Because she was pregnant with our second child. The second child was due like November 11th or November 12th of 2020, something like that. He ended up being born November 7th. But she was due with our second child. We had a 3-year-old at the time. We're living in Queens in a 2-bedroom apartment, trying to find a house. It's the middle of the pandemic. And in, I want to say September, about September 19th, I'm visiting my mom, and she ends up having a stroke while I'm visiting her. And we didn't know what was going on. We didn't recognize the signs of a stroke, which is, eats me up all the time, right? So that's guilt that's there. But we didn't recognize the signs of the stroke. So she ends up going to the hospital, and she ends up being on a ventilator for about 4 months for the remainder of her life. She ended up passing away January of 2021. So, in September when she had the stroke, I'm focused on her. I'm focused on my wife. I'm focused on work. I'm focused on buying the house. I'm focused on all these different things.
Keeping the kids safe. It's the pandemic. Everybody.
Exactly. I'm not focused on anything related to myself. And what I didn't know at the time was I had a growing tumor right here. And I don't know if you can see the scar, but there's a huge scar that's here and it goes down my neck and behind my head. Basically, this tumor, it had grown, it grew to about the size of a golf ball in about a month and a half. And I didn't really notice until I was in a conversation and I bit my cheek. I just randomly bit my cheek because now it had grown to a point where naturally I would end up biting on it by accident. So I ended up biting my cheek. It kept getting worse and it felt like it got infected. I'm like, fuck, man, this sucks. I got to go to a doctor. Finally get to a doctor. They shuttled me around to a few other docs, send me to go get, CAT scans and MRIs and all that stuff. And I remember it vividly, man. I remember walking into a doctor's office on a Friday afternoon in late October. And, I've said this before, but, I walked into that doctor's office at 11:45 for a noon appointment. And I just knew something was off. But I walk in there and immediately they asked me to go into the office. They were like, the doctor is ready to see you now. And I just knew. I was like, something is bad. Because never in your life does a doctor take you early. Never. I've never, ever met a doctor earlier than, the time that I'm supposed to see them or 15, 20 minutes after I've been waiting. So as soon as I got in there, he closed the door behind me and no emotion and just confirmed, Mr. Khanna, you have cancer. Here are your options. And, this is late October. If you remember my son, I said my son was due November 11th or November 12th. So now I've got about 2.5, maybe 3 weeks before he's due. I'm closing on the house that we bought. The house closing was also in late October. Again, pandemic. My mom is on, is in a hospital bed. So now I'm just freaking out. I have no air in the room. I can't breathe. I'm just trying to contain myself. I don't even know what's going on. The whole world is just spinning. And, you just, you step into fight or flight, right? And I don't have the option to flight. I don't have the option to fly away. So I just stood there and I was like, all right. Have my moments of weakness. Took me about a day. I composed myself and it was like, all right, we got some work to do.
Okay, wait. Hold on a second, Raman. So you said it was on the side of your face. So most times when people get like lumps or abscesses on the side of their face, they relate it to being having a toothache or you know what I mean, like a cavity or something like mouth related. You never thought? Did you ever go to a dentist to see if maybe you had?
That was the first appointment.
Oh, so you did go? Okay.
Yeah.
You did? Okay. Because I would say if you bit the cheek, I would think the first thing would be maybe this is the dentist. You normally start at the lower levels first before you go to the hospital.
I think I did. If I remember right, I did urgent care. Urgent care gave me antibiotics.
Right. Antibiotics.
Which didn't work. Right. Which didn't work. And I was like, I'm still in a lot of pain.
Right.
Then went to a dentist. The dentist made a couple of calls and shuttled me around to an oral surgeon. The oral surgeon made me get the X-rays, the MRI, all that stuff.
There we go.
And finally they
that
confirmed.
makes sense.
It took a little bit, but you're right. Yeah, I did start with urgent care and a dentist first.
Yeah, I mean, it's some. first thing I was gonna say, Ramon, I'm not gonna lie. You know, I was gonna be like, in the pandemic, you looking for a house. So I was about to give you the horn for that. I could give you the horn for that. First of all, most motherfuckers at home, they don't know if they're gonna have a job the next day.
But you in your apartment,
and you like, yeah, let's go get that mansion.
that's the time to do it. You in an apartment, you realize how much you don't like people. You realize I don't need to be around Johnny down the hall. They're disgusting. I don't like it. They don't take out the garbage on time. This is created COVID.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like that, I just wanted to touch on that. Like that's a hell of a story in itself, right? Because if you listen to most people and they talk about the pandemic, it was survival mode, you know, holding on to whatever you had because you didn't know how long this thing was gonna last. What are you gonna do? What your job is gonna look like? And you guys were out there like, yeah, it's time for the family to get a new residence and all of that. So, you know, I just wanted to say again, that's a testament to your preparation though, because you never know when something's gonna happen. But because you guys were prepared, right, to a certain extent, you were able to say, okay, even though this is happening, we're still gonna make this type of a move. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
you know,
listen, you know, when I was in that doctor's office, right, and I asked, what are my options, right? I need to get a hold of myself. What are my options? And I didn't really have a lot of options because at the time they told me it was stage 3, and in about 2.5 weeks, when I ended up going into surgery, it had already progressed to stage 4, meaning that it had spread to my neck and it was spreading really fast. Wow. So, you know, I asked what my options are in terms of treatment. Can I put this off for a few months? Can I wait till next year? And there's no option there. It was, no, you need to get this done immediately because, you know, this is progressing really fast. And realistically, in 6 months, you may not be here. That's the answer I got. So now it's, do I make this decision to buy a house?
Right.
Knowing that in 6 months, if I don't address this, I'm not around.
Right.
So, you know, I sat on that for a little bit because I wasn't sure what decision to make, you know, and it was hard because it's, you know, I could use the down payment that I put on the house. I could use that back for my medical bills. I didn't know how expensive everything would be. I didn't know anything, right? At that point, that uncertainty is there. And I don't know what my financial needs would be. So I kind of went back and forth. And at the end, I made the decision. It's like, all right, whatever it is, you know, I'm going to get the house, whether I'm around or not. My family has a home, right? And, you know, paying for it, we'll figure it out. But like, made that decision. Very difficult to come to, but, you know, I go back to that fight or flight comment, right? Like when you don't have the option to fly away and it's this or nothing, you stand up and you take on whatever challenge that gets put in your face. And I was ready to die for it. It didn't matter to me.
That's so real, bro.
Yeah.
I can feel everything. I couldn't imagine dealing with those emotions, bro. At that time, you're dealing with the pandemic. You got the kid, you got your son on the way, right? So you just had a daughter. You know, us as men, like I got my son, my boy coming. You're happy as hell, right? I got the house. We get everything good. We worked hard. We prepared for this.
But you know that's exactly it, right? The way that I felt is, if you think about it, right? And I said it before, immigrant family, you know, everybody's contributing to you know, the house bills, the grocery bills, all that stuff, right? Bouncing from job to job, graduating, not knowing what I'm going to do, you know, taking on loans to pay for college and not knowing how to pay them back, just doing it because that's what you're supposed to do, right? All of that grind, that stacking, that building, you work so hard to get to a point in your life where you have a family, where you're able to provide for them, where you're able to buy them a house and take care of them, right? You work your entire life to get to that moment. And then you got 6 months to live. And that's it. Okay. So what do you do? What do you do? For me, the choice was easy. Once I got over the emotions, the choice was easy. I'm going to take care of my family. So if I need to go into surgery, I did the surgery 2 weeks after they told me I had cancer. 2 weeks after. So exactly what happened, and I'll tell you, man, is Friday, November 6th.
The day before your son was born.
The day before my son was born, November 6th. We moved everything from our 2-bedroom apartment to the house. It took all day from 9 a.m. to about 12:15. We didn't know the boy was going to be born the next day, but we were just, as soon as the closing happened and I was able to get a U-Haul and move everything, I did it immediately. I didn't waste any time on that. Yeah. So as soon as we got the closing done, painted a room or two, and then moved all of our stuff. Spent all day from 9 a.m. till about 12:15 at night on November 6th. Woke up in the morning and she was in labor, and we got to the hospital like 20 minutes before the baby was born. So that's November 7th. 2 days later, November 9th, they come home. Thankfully, everything is good. Wife and baby are all healthy. I'm there with my daughter. Remember, we're in a new house. Boxes everywhere, clothes scattered everywhere. Yeah. Things are packed away. You don't know where things are, right? It's a mess. So she comes home with the new baby on the 9th. And on the 10th, the very next day after that, I go into surgery. So I'm in Lenox Hill for 10 days after that in ICU, and she's at home with a newborn and a 3-year-old in a brand new house. That's really hard. That's really hard.
Yeah, that's heavy, bro.
Heavy.
Again,
really hard.
That's when again the support system comes into effect, and I don't know if your family chipped in with that. Yep, I would imagine that your family, right? Because that's, I'm a man, but just talking to so many women of how they feel emotionally after having a baby is not nothing to play with, right? And now it's the emotion of, not only did I just have this baby, but there's something very wrong with my husband, right? And then his mother. You understand what that's a lot, Raman. That's a lot to wear, right? And then the physical aspect of giving birth can, tire you out and wear you down and things of that nature, right?
She just gave birth a few days before.
Yeah. She's in one of those spaces where even if she really wanted to do something, it's only so much that she could actually do. You know what I mean? So I just want to, take my hat off to your wife, man, for being such a strong woman, because that's a lot to process, man.
But also to you too, bro. Imagine being in the ICU, knowing that my child and my wife are home, and I want to be home. Is he eating? Is he not?
I will tell you this.
Resilience.
I will tell you this. I was sitting in that hotel room and I was chilling. I was fucking chilling. I told my friends I was golden. I'm good. Don't even worry about me. They'll take care of me. I'm good. I'm laying around in bed. I'm flipping around channels. I had a breathing tube. I got a scar right here. I had a breathing tube, so I couldn't speak. So just texting back and forth. When I'm talking to the doctors and nurses, I'm writing stuff down. I kind of like not speaking for that week. It was just kind of relaxing, and I wasn't worried and I wasn't down, because after the doctor told me I had cancer, that 2 to 3 weeks before I was in that hospital bed, right, was the toughest 3 weeks of my fucking life. The toughest 3 weeks, because I'm figuring out what to do with the house. If at any point my wife gives birth, it throws whatever plan I had completely out the window. So I needed for her to hold out as long as she could. Obviously not up to her.
Hold it in, baby. Hold it in.
Hold on, baby.
Hold it in.
But all the things that I needed or wanted to get done, they were done.
Right.
They were done. My family was in our home. Granted, not everything is perfect, but they're there. We worked our ass off to get there, but they're there. I might be in a hospital bed, but they are where they need to be. And I made sure that I got them there. I'll be all right. I'm good.
I got to ask you now. I don't know if y'all wondering, how did the job support you?
Really
Right? Like, how did the job? I'm thinking, like, because that's another stress factor that could be added where they're like, yo, we're going to get somebody else or something.
So earlier I told you about a friend of mine that I met at Enterprise Rent-A-Car that would impact my life 20 years down the line. That friend was somebody that I worked directly for at the time when I went through the cancer diagnosis. And immediately after it happened, he was one of the first phone calls that I made after I got out the doctor's office. And he said, whatever time you need, don't even worry about it. We'll talk to HR. We'll get you what you need. We'll set you up. Don't even stress it. So I appreciate him beyond words can express, man. That's
real.
Yeah. That's crucial. I'm not gonna lie, because I'm thankful that you had a person that actually cared about you. Again, when we talked about, right, as a human being and not just a cog in the wheel. Because if they looked at you as just a cog in the wheel, then they would have been like, yo, we got work to do. We got numbers to hit. So we got to do what we got to do as a company, as a business. It's not personal. And that could have not went the right way,
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I had a lot of luck. I'm not, it's not beyond me to know that. I benefited from a lot of luck there. But I'm also a firm believer in creating your own luck, right? And that comes from the work that you put in. Sometimes you get lucky in life, and that's all right. But, the work is the work, and the work facilitates the luck. So I'm okay with that.
Message. It is.
Yeah.
I like it. So, okay. So you said 10 days in the hospital. What's now the recovery process past that? So 10 days in the hospital and they let you come home, but can you go right back to work? Like how do you start to recover? What's the reintegration process looking like?
No, so I got back, I got out of the hospital. I had about a month before chemo and radiation started. And all in all, I did 6 weeks of chemotherapy and 30 sessions of radiation. And I did them concurrently, so I did them together, and that was the most, I don't know, physically excruciating time ever. Like it was bad. And I'll explain why. So chemo is, everybody's familiar with chemo, right? It's kind of like an IV drip, right? And immediately when it hits your bloodstream, you feel nauseous, like you want to throw up, right?
Want to throw up, yeah.
Yeah. And chemo sessions last 5 or 6 hours, right? Something like that. So you're there kind of all day with like this IV drip, and you're just sick. And, that sickness probably lasts, I don't know, several days, maybe a week before it kind of goes away. So when you're going through this, through chemo treatments, sometimes you throw up, sometimes you don't, right? But you're just constantly sick. It sucks. It's awful. And because of that, you're not really eating well. You're not getting good nutrients. You end up losing a lot of weight. Sometimes because you're not eating, and other times because you're vomiting up. And not to kind of gross out, but like I was probably throwing up 3-4 times a day, from all of the chemo treatments. So chemo is bad, but after a week or two, it kind of dissipates a little bit and you start feeling better. Radiation was different. Radiation was a half hour every day, and it's localized head and neck. So they put like a mask on, and then they put you on the lasers and all that. The radiation didn't hurt at first, but it has a compounding effect. So every day it gets worse and worse. So by the 30th treatment, by the final treatment, it looked like I literally had gotten beat up every day. My face was bloody. It was swollen. Literally half my face was black. Like the color black. So it was bad, man. I was really hurting. And through this time, because I'm in so much pain, I'm not able to eat. Again, I'm losing lots of weight, not keeping nutrients. Ended up losing probably about 55, 60 pounds all in all. I've gained a little bit of that back, and thankfully I've done a good job of kind of staying fit and staying healthy. Thankfully that's part of my wife's nutrition background. I think that definitely helps a lot too, right? Yeah. But like that was physically, that was hell. And then after all of it was done, there was still mental scars that I didn't deal with, man. That was the tough part. That's taken me a few years to kind of come to terms with. And that's been some shit that like I think has required me to grow and really have honest conversations with myself to be able to address. but like physically, maybe the most pain I've ever been in, and then followed by this crazy mental anguish of survivor's guilt and PTSD that just kind of sat there without me addressing it for a couple of years.
Wow. Man. There's so many directions we can go.
I know, man. I know. That's what I mean.
You say real shit, and I don't probe too much, but I want to, like, you know what I mean? That mental battle.
This is, and not to say children don't go through it, but again, this is what adult life looks like, right? He got sick, right? He got sick, but he got sick in the midst of him still having a family, right? His wife still expecting a new addition to the family, right? Him purchasing a home. This is what I was saying, right, Raman? This is what I was talking about. What happens when life compounds? What happens when you have to deal with multiple issues and things at one time? Do you have the mental fortitude, like you said, to just, okay, I'm gonna deal with it, have your day, but then what's the game plan, right? How do we see it through? How do we progress? How do we move this thing forward? So, your story is very, very important, because obviously as human beings, we all go through different things, right? And a lot of times these things are hereditary, they're genetic, right? You don't know, right? Everything doesn't come from smoking or drinking or things of that nature, right? But it's what you do when these things happen. Do you still have the mental fortitude to push through, right? Get it done, still take care of the things that need to take care of, and push through. So, we just want to commend you on that. Like I said, there's a lot of people on this show. I promise you, there's a lot of people that's going to hear your story that's going through something very similar right now, and they need to hear this, because they need to hear that so that they don't give up. Because it would have been very easy. Listen to what you said. That was the most pain you ever went through in your life. And that was the physical. Like you said, I'm not even talking about the emotional that I had to deal with after, just the physical pain, right? To let them know that, like, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, but you just have to keep going and have that belief that, this will get better. So, we appreciate you for being candid with that. Because like I said, I think your story is going to help a lot of people that are going through similar things, not only with themselves, but with a loved one, right? If their wife or their husband or their mate is going through something, and they need to know what it looks like and what it sounds like, right? To be able to make their way through it.
But before we even, we go into the now and recovery, bro. What advice would you give to somebody going through the same thing right now? Well, to get through the physical and the mental? Because it's one thing to say we get up every day, but we also know it's a battle every day. It's something to be like, it's 1,000 reasons to say no.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to somebody in a similar position?
I would just say, figure out the reason why you're doing it, man. Figure out the reason why you're doing it, right? And be selfish with it. It's okay to be selfish with it when you're going through it. It's all right. If the reason itself is just because you want to see yourself get better, and there's a show that you want to go see, a movie that's coming out, and if that's enough to keep you focused and make you do enough to get better, do it. Figure out whatever that reason is. It could be as simple as that, or it could be as more complex as, like, all right, I need to make sure I'm here to raise my kids. For me, it was that. It wasn't like small things. It was that I have no intention of having my children be raised without a father or somebody else raise my kids. I put in the work for it. I've been grinding my whole life to get to this point. I'm not gonna have it be taken away from me. So
that's right.
For me, it was easy as that. But, like, find the reason why you wanna get through it and be successful.
Message. Yeah. Right. I just thought about it, Ramon. I knew it, but it didn't really hit me until you actually told your full story. My sister actually almost went through. She's my cousin. She's my first cousin, but we're like sister and brother. She actually went through almost the exact same thing that you're talking about. She beat cancer, I believe, 3 times.
Wow.
And she had a full career, and she also purchased a home. And a lot of the times, when we wanted to be around her and stuff like that, she's like, nah, I just need a day. And you really don't understand what a person is going through. But one of the things we did to kind of like show her support and love was when she lost her hair, we actually all went to the barbershop and cut our hair off. Yeah, her husband is a barber, so we actually all went to the barber shop and cut our hair off in solidarity of that to support her for that. So again, like I said, it's important. And she was doing it for the exact same reasons, like you said. She has a family, she has children, and she wanted to be a homeowner, right? And she wanted to provide something for her family. So again, like I just realized that it actually really hits home for me. It really hits home for me, you know. So I appreciate you sharing that story, man. I definitely appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and again, I just want to say thank you again for sharing your story, the resilience that you had. I definitely think your story will be heard by many and inspire many as well. So now let's talk about recovery moving forward.
Yeah.
Right, because I think that this part of the story is just as important, because a lot of people, they want to know like what's on the other side. What does that look like?
Yeah.
So right now, that transition, like going back to work, having the energy to spend more time with your kids, like what did that experience feel like? Let's start there.
So going back to work was great. Everybody was really cool about integrating me back into what we were doing. It was slow. It was like, hey, take your time. We know you have a lot of things going on, and obviously dealing with a lot, so take your time. Medical leave is over, so we have to integrate you back into the team, but like, we're not going to pressure you. So I was very thankful for that, right? Gave me a chance to just kind of be home and be around my kids, be around my wife. And my mom had passed away in the middle of my radiation chemo treatments. I remember when she passed away, it was super early in the morning, early in mid-January, and I still ended up going to my radiation treatment later that morning because it was too late for me to cancel. So there was a lot of grief, and there was a lot of dealing with loss that I didn't actively do. So when I was home, even though I was back at work, I was still kind of figuring out my space and my life after my mom had passed away. I was super close with her growing up, and just the most influential person in my life ever. And it was tough because I realized when I was going through the surgery, the treatments, that I suppressed a lot of emotion. I realized that I was suppressing good feelings and bad feelings, all because I had this short time frame to accomplish a ton of different things in. So there's no time to like dwell on whatever emotion that I had, whether it was good from my kid being born or buying a house, or it was the dealing with grief from my mom's passing. I didn't deal with any of those emotions. I just kind of suppressed them. So when I was home, now I'm home after all of the treatment, I'm back at work, but I'm, it's still the middle of the pandemic. We're still working from home. I'm not leaving the house ever. I'm now technically a cancer survivor. So even when I go out, I'm masked up, right? So I'm sitting at home, and I'm just, you start to realize that like all of that suppressed emotion is going to come back up. And it starts coming back up in weird ways, right? In ways where, I'm angry, I'm depressed, I'm down, I have crazy anxiety where I'm not speaking my mind, and just kind of a shell of myself, because now I'm like, I don't know, I guess I'm shell shocked from this whole experience. And I'm figuring out how to even be in this weird space where people look at me, immediately they know something happened. I've had people ask me if I got shot, if I got stabbed. They immediately know I went through some shit, right? So now I'm dealing with being this, I don't know, just this. I stood out like a sore thumb, and I didn't even know how to deal with it, right? And so these are all crazy emotions that are all bunched up together, and they're all coming out, making me angry and depressed, and I'm going through this cycle of just being quiet, but then, all of that bubbling back up. And I was, I did not want to see myself get worse. And I was like, I really got to address this. Thankfully, my wife is very honest with me. I had to be honest with myself about my own issues and how I was dealing with, when, you end up going into therapy, and I did therapy for a little while, and I think that helped, helped me come to terms with the fact that, you know, a lot of that trauma, which I kept thinking was in the past, was in the present. That trauma was right here every day, and I just wasn't dealing with it, right? So, you know, for me, every time I looked in the mirror, I was reminded of what I went through. And every time I met somebody new and they had a question about what happened to me, I was reminded of what I went through. So if I'm not dealing with it, that emotion is still continuing to be suppressed, and it's going to find its way out in very just difficult and problematic ways.
That's real, man.
Yeah.
I'm just so glad that you shared a story, bro. I'm just hearing what you've gone through.
It's surreal, man. I don't even believe it. I went through it.
It's crazy, bro. It
It's
is,
surreal.
man. But I'm glad that you're like, I can tell you're in a better place mentally, right? I can tell you're in a better place. It's like, I couldn't imagine that, right? Like you said, like people know something happened to me. I used to be this. I want to do this. How do I plan for something else again? What if I want to get the next house? But last time I planned for the house, this is what happened, right? Like it's so many things that you're thinking about, but you subconsciously you're suppressing it, bro. Like I just want to say thank you as a friend of yours, somebody who's come up in the mud with you, man. We used to talk about our goals, man. We used to talk about the house.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the story hits different. You know what I'm saying? We used to talk about like what we wanted to do, how we were going to get out this place, how we going to progress our career. And then I couldn't imagine getting to that pinnacle. And then you're like, damn, man, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, and this happened. And not feel down for yourself, bro. And I didn't hear that once. I heard you went through it, but I didn't hear it was like, no, why me? No, none of that shit. You said, no, I'm going to get through it, man. And to have that strength, man, I just got to I got to commend you, man, commend your family, man. And
I appreciate
that's something real. And I'm grateful that you've come on our platform to share that, bro. Because it needs to be, stories like this need to be told, man. Need to be told.
Do you think that you have and I know it's kind of like a crazy question, but do you think that you have like a new outlook on life now that you've survived what you went through, different than before you found out what it was? Like, did your direction kind of shift, or do you now feel like you were directionally correct and now you're just gonna like double down on what you were doing? What is that?
I don't know. You know, that's a really good question, and I don't know if I have doubled down on it, right? And I think I found a little bit more direction in my life now, right? That may be because I'm, a father 2 times over, right? Like,
right.
You know, fatherhood gives you direction to some extent, right? It has to.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's because of that, or if it's because of all of the experience, or if it's everything all in one, right? But I started to realize after I kind of came to terms with all of these experiences, and I realized I was having some real mental health issues that I needed to address and be better about. I think once I came to terms with that, I think I started realizing, like, all right, we got to create new memories, man. My children need to have good memories of their childhood and how they grew up, right? And that responsibility is on me. That's not on anybody. I can't pass that to anybody. That's me. So as far as I was concerned, like, all right, I need to make sure that their priorities are first. And that's mental health, that's, their general well-being, that's physical well-being, all of those things. I have to be a good father first before I can be anything else. And then next is being a good husband. That's probably 1A and 1B, and being a leader, and that's something that I have slowly grown into. I always considered myself a leader, but I don't know if that confidence was ever there as it is now. And I feel great about that, because I know I've been through some shit. Like I said it, man, like, it's surreal. I don't even believe these experiences myself, but I'm proud of myself because I know how like dire those circumstances were. And I appreciate the people around me that were able to help support and get us through it. And I just feel like, in terms of growth and who I am as a man, like, I'm not going to let anybody down, because they put so much of themselves into making sure me and my family were all okay. So I'm not in any position to let anybody down. I'll continue to work for them.
That's right.
What about your patience level? What about your patience level,
Yeah.
like, and your tolerance for, like, let's just call it the bullshit? Because now you done went through some shit, right? You like, bro, did you know what I went through? Like, do you know what I went? Like, now when you hear people kind of like talk to you, or they kind of come to you with the sob story, how's your patience level with dealing with that now? Like, are you like, bro, are you seriously talking to me about some bullshit?
It's slim, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. It is very slim. You're right. My patience level with some of the bullshit that people come to me with is I try to be respectful and diplomatic because, you know, those problems are real to them. You know what I mean? Like, those are issues that's real to them. And I don't know specifics of what goes on in people's lives. Not everybody is an open book as far as I've been, right? I get that. So I try to be understanding of whatever situation that they have and try to be empathetic, right? But you're right. There's some bullshit that comes across, and it's like, hold on.
Right. I'm just saying, like, you know, because, you know, I went through experience, let's call it, right? I call it a near-death experience, and for me, it happened like a year ago, and I'm gonna be honest, like, it didn't change me so much so where it's like directionally I didn't think I was correct. It gave me a lower tolerance for bullshit, and then gave me a higher tolerance to now like see red flags and remove myself immediately. You understand what I'm saying? Where you're like, yeah, that's a red flag. I'm not even playing that game. Like, do you understand what, like, you know what I mean? I think it just kind of like in that moment, in that time, at least for me, when I felt like this might be it, that infinite, like, this is it, or this could be it. It really, like you said, it makes you aware of what you have, what we're doing. It really makes you look at what your priorities really are, right? What really matters to you? What is truly important in life, and what is fluff? What, like you said, like, shit is nice to have, but what are we really doing? What am I, if this is it, what am I leaving behind? Am I leaving my family? Am I leaving my people behind in a good space? You know, how are they gonna? This is the things that you think about. So that's why I asked you that question, because, you know, it can really make you like laser guided focus and kind of like have a low tolerance for the BS after that. What you think about that?
No, I think you're right. I think, you know, there's definitely some people who definitely like to BS out there. So, like I said, I commend you for having that, both of you, to have that filter to know when to step away, because I feel like a lot of people don't learn that ever. But I want to know, like, because life is all about peaks, valleys, ups, downs. What is like a mountaintop moment? Like Jarrett says, like that "Mama, I made it" moment for you, going this through your whole journey.
That's a tough question, because, you know, I could say it was, you know, professionally when I became a VP, right, a few years back, you know, and that was something that always felt like a mythical title, right? It was like, oh, cool, I gotta keep striving for it, but, you know, once you get there, what do you do, right? That's the other part of it. There's always growth there, right? So it was cool that I got to say that, you know, I have this title, but there's more than that, right? So that would be cool.
I was waiting for them to hit that button. I thought somebody was going to beat me to it. That was a layup. Ramon, you're good.
I didn't want to cut him off.
We're gonna get you a book tour. You gotta tell the story, bro. Like, this is real.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of my long-term goals, though.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
That's one of my long-term goals, and I've given myself 10 years. So 10 years from now, hopefully you guys can hold me accountable. I've given myself 10 years to write a book. So
not only can we hold you accountable, and we'll talk about this after the show, but we're actually connected with people that can actually help you write this book and format the book and actually bring it to market. So we'll talk about it after the show, but maybe it might not take 10 years, depending on how bad you really want to do this thing. We can put you in contact with the right people that can really help bring this dream to fruition very quickly.
What they said for 10 years? Nah, 10 days. We'll get you there in 10 days.
Okay, so
now you on the circuit.
So you VP, you know, okay, so now let's talk about, like, okay, so progression now. The kids now are getting older, right? They're getting older. You're in the VP slot now. What are we thinking now? Is it time to pivot? Are we going to stay here a little longer and kind of like, raise the kids? Are we thinking about, okay, maybe I'm going to pivot to maybe start something else, or, I want to spend more time with the kids? What's life looking like right now?
Yeah. I mean, I like the space that I'm in. I like where I am. Right. And I like the work that I do. The company that I work for right now is evolving a little bit. And if you guys follow the trades, we're right now working through an acquisition with Omnicom. So another bigger fish is eating up a pretty big fish. Yeah. So we're evolving and changing every day, right? And through that is some ups and downs, and you need strong, steady leadership to get through it, right? I feel I have a little bit of a responsibility to the people around me and to the people that work on my team, and my direct manager even, I have a responsibility to him because I respect him a ton. So, I like the space that I'm in, even though there are some ups and downs here, and like any career or job, there's going to continue to be so. But I think, I've put in the equity, I've put in the sweat and the hard work over the past 7 years at this company to be in the role that I'm in, right? And I worked very hard to get here and build up a team and build up our business collectively, that, I don't know if I'm ready to kind of give that up, right? It facilitates my home, being able to take care of my family, our small little luxuries for our kids. Like, all of those things are stemming from the work that I do here, right? And granted, I could go somewhere else and perhaps make a little bit more money and take care of that, but I don't know. I put in the work to be here, and I don't want to give that up just yet. 6 months from now, that might change, but I'm taking it, understanding the work that's been put in and the work that I'm currently doing and the clients that I work with who are really cool. So, enjoying where I am.
Okay. Second part to that, we always ask people that have become successful and have climbed the ladder, and we talk to them about the importance of giving back. Do you mentor anybody currently? Like, do you have any mentees? Because I think you have a great story, and people would really benefit from, learning from you and stuff like that. Do you have any mentees right now? Anybody that asks you for a mentorship or anything like that?
Yeah. I don't know if anybody's outright asked me for like a formal mentee-mentor relationship, right? But there are people that have reached out to me that, consider me like Unc or Big Bro or something, So I definitely have those type of conversations with a lot of people, and I appreciate them thinking of me in that capacity, because, coming up, it was hard. You looked around, it was few and far in between that would be open and willing to help out, right? And it almost felt like, people come up and they take the ladder up with them, and I never wanted to do that. So if they feel confident enough to come up to me and say they appreciate what I've been through and the knowledge that I have to share, it's only right for me to share across and have that reciprocity.
Yeah, I'll give the listeners some of the best game you gave me, bro. You made me want to focus on revenue only. I used to work.
I never heard that story. Let me hear this story.
Like, real shit. I used to think about all the other shit, right? Like, when I first started, like I said, I was trying to keep my job. Once you get the job, once you keep the role, now what are you going to do when you're there, right? It was you, Kondo, Steve Santilli, Santo. I'm competitive. I don't give a fuck who it is. I wanted to be number one always, right? And I was dealing with this shit. I was getting mad that people getting promoted by me. Remember, this is when I'm baggy slacks, Jarrett, braids down my back. I don't really know the corporate lingo. I don't know the game. And bro would just tell me, like, just do you. You're doing a great, like, do your thing, right? Like, we would just get the revenue. We're like, bro, you got it. You don't need the promotion. You don't need none of that shit. Get to it.
Yeah.
He used to sit right behind me. Right on the back row, bro. We used to sit right behind me. You Kondo used to get the deal, hand it right on. Literally, I could hand the phone to him. And we would rock out, bro. We closed. I know my best year, I was doing $1 million a year. Collectively, you probably had a book of business, maybe 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And we were just doing the thing. So that's one thing I got from you, bro. Like, you never cared about the fucking title. Never cared about this. You made me customer focused. Like, it doesn't matter. If the customer likes you, then they're gonna like you. Then everybody's gonna like you. Just do your thing, bro. So that's one piece of game I always got for you and appreciate it. That's why I get flowers on that.
I got one last question. So your daughter's super creative. You're in a creative space. You know what I mean? We always talk about like what does legacy look like and anything like that. Any little like subliminal grooming that, you know, kind of get her interested in marketing, or, you know, tell her like, hey man, some of those you know, paintings could become advertisement. You know what I mean? They could very easily do, right? Any little subliminal kind of leading it your way, kind of.
It's funny. We had a bring your kid to work day.
Okay, there we go.
She's running around the office.
Yeah.
She was loving it. She was loving it. She loves all the different brands and stuff that we work on. Go. That's what kind of resonates with her. But, you know, more than anything, I've told her that like her artwork that she has, you know, I really think is very talented. And I'm saying that from, you know, a biased lens of being her dad, right? But truth is, like, she's a very talented little kid with amazing artistic talent. She's been featured a couple of times in like district art shows, and you know, she has. I love it. It's very cool, right? I want to encourage that, and if that's her outlet, then however I can help promote that, I'm more than happy to do so, right? So I think, you know, I don't know if it's so much like I want her to follow in whatever my footsteps are, right? But more so instilling that confidence in herself to follow her own path and whatever that may be.
That's right.
I love it. Naj, you got anything?
My last question is like, so with everything, work, life, what do you want to be known for when the title no longer matters?
Really good question.
Bing bong.
That's tough.
I like it a lot.
Shock me.
That's tough, right? I think you know, again, I probably end up leaning on titles, and you know, something like that as cancer survivor, right? You know, that stands out, but that's just something that I went through, and that's a circumstance that I was kind of thrown into, right? I don't know. I would want to be known as a good father first and foremost, right? Someone with high integrity and somebody that moved, you know, with the right purpose in mind. I was genuine. Money's important. Don't get me wrong, and it's you know, it's why we go to work every day. But money was never the big motivator, right? I think understanding success comes from your relationships and how you move amongst people. I think that's what motivated me more than anything, right? And money was secondary to that. So I think, you know, I think the respect both given and earned, I think is something that I would want to be known for and remembered for.
Message. Like it.
Yeah.
Cuzzo, you got anything else?
Now I just want to end it off now, man. I just want to say, kind of reiterate, bro, just thank you, man. Thank you for coming on the show and sharing your story, man. Like it made me think about a lot, and I'm gonna keep it real with you. We're working extremely fucking hard right now.
Mm-hmm.
We've got so many things coming up, so many events coming up. I go to work, I come back home, working on the business with them, you know, Nadege and Cuzzo. We're doing clips, we're editing posts. We got this, that. We got to make sure panels are right. We're doing creative. And I don't really look back and try to, like, I don't even enjoy the moment. We do one thing, it's no time to celebrate. We're on to the next one. Yo, we just did something really dope. Doesn't matter. On to the next one. Like, we just interviewed Ronnie DeVoe from New Edition and shit. I didn't even think about it. On to the next one. You know what I mean? Like, and sometimes I don't think about myself a lot. So one thing that this conversation has definitely allowed me to do, I would hate, you know what I'm saying? We work all this hard and all this time, all this effort and energy, and for something
that success, man.
Don't take anything for granted. Just enjoy the process, enjoy the moment, enjoy everything, enjoy the time with the family, man. That's what I'm getting from you, bro. So that's the message I took away from, and it's a message that clearly had to be said, it had to be heard. So I appreciate you for that, man. We're gonna I definitely would recommend you get on the circuit. There's a lot of cancer survivors, people who've gone through this shit that would love to hear your story, bro. I think your story is bar none one of the most powerful ones I've ever heard. So thank you again, bro. I'm glad you're here with us. I'm glad you're still rocking, bro. And, you know, when you're in the city, we definitely got to link up. It's been too fucking long.
I'm here, man. I'm here. You let me know when. It's a done deal.
My God, always love.
So with that being said, two things, right? So you already knew Jarrett, Ramon, but welcome to the More Than the Title family. Then we're gonna clap it up. Welcome to the More Than the Title family. So what that means now, you're a part of our family, you're a part of our village, and we don't believe in gatekeeping. We don't believe in gatekeeping. We believe in support all the way through, right? So like I said, what that means now is number one, we've had over 200 episodes now, right? We've had over, let's say, 190 something guests or whatever the case may be. You now have access to every guest prior to you that has come on the show, and now also guests that'll come on after you, right? This is very important for things of what we just talked about, right? The support system, the networking. So now, if there's ever somebody that you want to get in contact with that you've seen on the show, or whatever the case may be, you text us and say, hey, I would love to, connect with so-and-so. We'll get your schedule. We'll get their schedule. We'll do a Zoom call. We'll say, A, this is B, this is A, and normally we get off after the call and let you guys do your thing, right? We've done this over 24 times now, and a lot of beautiful relationships and or business opportunities have developed from it, right?
Yeah.
So we encourage you to take advantage of that, right? Please. And like we said, like we know people that have publishing companies, and we know people that help write books. We know people that do this on a regular basis. So if there's things that you want to get done, we can, even if we can't make it happen for you, we can point you in the right direction and at least start some great conversations for you to give you some better insight on what you need to do to bring some of your ideas forward. So that's number one. And two, me and Nadege didn't get a chance to hang out with you. So Jarrett got a chance to hang out with you. me and Nadege hang out with you. So now, if you're in New York, we definitely got to link up, for lunch or something. And if you ever have like any type of an event, right, we love to support. If you have any type of an event that you want us to support, all it takes is for you, again, to send the text, send the information, and we'll be there. And we're going to move this thing forward. This is me and Nadege's first time meeting you, but we're not transactional. We look forward to having, more conversations with you. Welcome to the More Than the Title family. Yeah. I love this episode right here, man. So, with that being said, once again, I told y'all it was going to be a phenomenal episode. I ain't going to lie. I didn't know he was going to say what he was going to say, but I knew it was going to be powerful. This man came on and was totally vulnerable with you guys about his upbringing. He told you that he started working and contributing to his family at a very young age, okay? He told you about him being a cancer survivor when he learned that he had cancer and what he went through with his mother and his wife and him being a family man and him trying to go and purchase a home. Once again, showing you that success is not linear. Yes, he had a good job, but having a good job didn't save him from all the other things that life was still throwing at him, right? Having a family was good, but it still didn't save him from all the other things that life was throwing at him. But one thing he kept saying was flight or fight, right? I can't run. I can't fly away. I got to stay here and I got to fight. And that reiterates everything that we always say every time we end this show, right? You got to fight. You got to keep going. Success is not linear. The dream is free.
But the hustle is so separately. I think the mic is you. The school bell. No,
it can't be me. It can't be me.
There's some air out his tire.
In a world where it cannot be me.
All right, yo.
You know what it is? Listen, we coming back on Thursday. Listen, this is the only podcast where you get to have fun like this. Is the only podcast where you get to be yourself. It's authentic. It's not scripted. And we're not doing clickbait. This is for the culture. Oh, before we get out, I know we ended it off, but Raman, please let the people know. This is super important. Let the people know there's going to be people that want to get in contact with you. There's going to be people that want to, follow your journey. Please let the people know what's the best way to get in contact with you and follow you if they want to connect with you, please.
Find me on Instagram, find me on LinkedIn, probably the best ways to reach me. I'm not really active a ton. I don't post a lot, but I answer DMs.
Okay. And with that being said, again, please be respectful. Like we say to all of our guests, this man is a businessman. He's a family man. Please be respectful. If you reach out to him, give him some time to answer. He got a lot of things going on, but you heard him say, listen, if you want to work or, you want some type of mentorship, he's willing to do that. Cuz what we got coming up on Thursday?
Oh shit! Thursday we got Porter Braswell. You already know, CEO of Jody AI, also co-founder of Jopwell. Y'all seen it? Y'all seen it all over LinkedIn. You seen it all over the net. It's fire. Then on next Tuesday, June 3rd, I think it's the 3rd, we got DJ Sus One pulling up. One of the hottest DJs in New York City, coming to tell his story right on live. Coming to fuck with us on the couch, y'all. And then June 5th, we got the CEO versus. We got Steve Lamar coming. CEO versus Squizzy.
This is New York City, baby.
Well, that's what we doing, the CEO versus, man. You never know. You might see us at the next versus. That's what we doing out there. You know, we got Can coming out June 16th. All that content catches at Inkwell Beach. Blackette. We out here, man. More than a title. See y'all.
What you know about me? Seen it all, heard it all. Oh, what you know about me? I done it all. Just one.